Bonjour classe, bienvenue dans la classe de français 1. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes leçon 9. That's lesson 9. Wow, we're making a lot of progress this year. Let's take a look at some of our first few vocab words. These are all adjectives. What does an adjective do? It describes. So these are ways to talk about people that you know, to describe what they look like or what they're like as a person. For example, we have, starting right off, beau means handsome or good looking. Jeune means young. Blond, you can tell, is blonde. And petit means small. So we could say about this young man here, il est beau, il est jeune, il est blond, et il est petit. And then his friend, she has some different traits. Elle est brune. That's her brown brunette hair color. Elle est belle. That means beautiful. Elle est une copine. She's a friend. Et elle est grande. This is the only one here that's not an adjective, right? That's a noun. It says who she is. But to say what she's like, elle est brune, elle est belle, elle est grande. And finally, we can compare here. Ce copain, il est brun, il est grand. Est-ce qu'il est jeune aussi? Oui, il est jeune. One thing I want you to notice is that when we are describing a boy, we use the word like blond, petit, and beau. But when we are describing a girl, the adjective has to change to be, you guessed it, feminine. So for example, instead of saying elle est beau, that's the masculine form. That means handsome or beautiful. For a girl, we say elle est belle. That's the feminine form. That also means beautiful. You might notice that here, this young man, we said il est brun. But when we were talking about the young lady, elle est brune with an E at the end. And you hear how it changes the pronunciation. Brun, brune. Same thing with them being tall. She's tall, he's tall, but the words are spelled differently. Il est grand, elle est grande with an E at the end. Okay? Also, if we were talking about a girl who was blonde, blonde. Or a girl who was short, petite, with an E at the end. So we're going to remember that. We're going to practice that this week, describing people, but remembering to use the correct masculine or feminine adjective. Let's do that. Starting with our friend here. Qui est-ce? Qui est-ce? C'est un copain? Je ne sais pas si c'est un copain. Regarde son visage. Comment s'appelle-t-il? Il s'appelle Stewie, n'est-ce pas? Quel âge a-t-il? Je parie qu'il a 3 ans, peut-être? Je ne sais pas. Et comment est-il? Oh, il est jeune. Il est petit. Et est-ce qu'il est brun ou blond? Je parie qu'il est brun. Voilà. Et cette fille-ci, qui est-ce? C'est une copine, oui? Elle est très sympathique. Comment s'appelle-t-elle? Je ne sais pas. Elle s'appelle Julie. Quel âge a-t-elle? À peu près 8 ans, peut-être? Et comment est-elle? Elle est brune. Elle est jeune. Elle est sportive. Oui, elle est sportive. Et est-ce qu'elle est grande ou petite? C'est difficile à dire. Je parie qu'elle est assez petite. Voilà comment décrire quelqu'un. Est-ce que vous connaissez cette femme? Qui est-ce? Qui est-ce? C'est une dame. Comment s'appelle-t-elle? Elle s'appelle Beyoncé. Quel âge a-t-elle? Oh, je ne sais pas. Quel âge a-t-elle? Est-ce qu'elle a 30 ans? Je ne suis pas certaine. Elle est plus jeune que moi. Comment est-elle? Elle est blonde? Dans cette photo, elle est blonde. Elle est grande. Oui, et elle est très, très belle. Voilà. Qui est-ce ici? C'est un homme. Comment s'appelle-t-il? Il s'appelle Perry. Quel âge a-t-il? Oh, ça, je ne sais pas. Blank on, je ne sais pas. Et comment est-il? Il est petit. Oui. Il est bleu. Et il est... Je ne sais pas. Il est assez beau. Regarde, il est beau. Très bien, Perry, merci. Voici les autres personnes, on va les discuter en classe, mais comment sont-ils? Est-ce qu'ils sont grands ou petits? Est-ce qu'ils sont jeunes? Est-ce qu'ils sont blonds ou bruns? Et elle, la madame, comment est-elle? Est-ce qu'elle est jeune? Est-ce qu'elle est blonde ou brune? Est-ce qu'elle est grande ou petite? Dites-moi, comment sont-ils? Est-ce qu'il est grand ou petit? Et est-ce qu'il est grand ou petit? Difficile? Facile. And we'll do some more of that in class. The last thing for today is a whole list of vocabulary, things that you might have in your backpack or your locker. So these are all things that you can use at school. Oh, you might have some of these things in your room at home too, or just somewhere around the house. Anyway, lots of vocab, pages 140 through 142. We're going to try to get most of it in this video today, but if I miss it, you know where to look. So let's begin. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Un crayon. Et là, une montre. Ici, une raquette. Ici, une calculatrice. Calculatrice. Là, ici, un stylo. Ici, un livre. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Une chose. Class, une chose is just the word for a thing. It's just a thing. Another word you could say is un objet, an object. If you don't know what it is. Une chose, un objet. Oh, I almost missed one here. Not many people have these anymore because everything's on our phones. But if you're truly into photography, you're going to want an appareil photo. It's like photo apparatus, appareil photo. That's just the word for a camera. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Une guitare. Et là, un sac. Ici, un cahier. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Un poster. And this, I need to update my pictures. It's supposed to be a cell phone. Maybe your parents had a cell phone like this. Un portable. Oui, un portable. Plutôt ça, un portable. It's the same word. Ici, un ordinateur. Un ordinateur. Et là, I think you know this one. Une télé. Or une télévision. But they often shorten it to télé. Notice as you're learning these words that everything on here, even though they are just les objets, they're not people, they're objects, but they still have grammatical gender in French. So, un crayon, masculine, une montre, feminine, une raquette, une calculatrice, feminine, but un stylo, un livre, un appareil photo, masculine. That is as much a part of the word as the word itself. So as you learn your vocab, you're also categorizing and learning which words are masculine, which words are feminine. But wait, there's more. I told you there was a lot. Continue avec. This is, okay, we've got a few little bike-looking things here, so I'm going to kind of break it down for you. This looks like a bike, but can you see there's a small motor attached there? And this is called une mobilette. It's kind of like a moped, but it's a little less. It doesn't go as fast, right? So in France, I think you don't even have to have an age limit to ride one of these. Teenagers usually would ride this to just go a little faster than a typical bike. Une mobilette. This is a motorcycle. Une moto. And just like in the United States, in France you have to be 18 to drive a full-fledged motorcycle. Now compare that to this one here, non-motorized, typical bike. There are two words for this. One of them is masculine, un vélo, and that's the one I like because it's short and easy to remember. But the other one is a cognate for English, une bicyclette. A little bit longer, and it's feminine for some reason. So both of those words mean a bike. And then the last bicycle-looking type thing, this is a moped. It goes faster, like up to 45 miles an hour, but it's not as powerful as a motorcycle. And in France, I think you only have to be 14 or 15 to drive one of these, same as in the US. This is called un scooter. And these are very popular because also in France, you can't get your driver's license until you're 18. So what do you do when you're 14, 15, 16? 16 is when we get a lot of independence in the US. They still have to wait 2 more years before they can drive a car. So having a scooter, une mobilette, is a pretty handy thing to get around town. What else do we have here? Class, this right here is called une chaîne hi-fi. And it basically just means a stereo system. It's more than just a little Bluetooth speaker. It's the whole system. This is a car. Une voiture. Une voiture. Okay, have you ever seen one of these little vintage players? Now, again, c'est tout sur le portable. But back in the day, we had to take our tapes or sometimes our CDs and put them in a player that we could use with our headphones. These are called baladeur. Un baladeur. Class, the word balade is like to walk around, balader, and so it's a walker-arounder, also known as un walkman in France. This is just a phone, un téléphone, like the one I have on my desk at school. I think you can recognize this. Une radio. Class, des cassettes. Again with the vintage. It's because we have a vintage textbook. And finally, when I was in high school, if you didn't have the chaîne hi-fi, this was the next best thing. On boombox. No, they call it... What do they call it in your book? I can't remember. I just call it on boombox. En stereo? No, ce n'est pas en stereo. I'm putting a question mark by that, and we're going to look it up in the textbook. Somebody let me know. Send me an email or post in Google Classroom. I forgot what that's called in your textbook. Look it up. Une petite radio. N'importe quoi. Nobody has those anymore, unless maybe your parents do somewhere in the basement. If they do, you can use it to play their tapes. Des cassettes. Voila. All right, class. Lots of vocab for this week. And then next week, we're going to continue with the second half of Lesson 9. So your job this week is just to learn all of these words, talk about describing yourself and your friends, and practice as much